Ever wondered why some solos sound hip and cool and confident, but when it's your turn, your solo sounds like random, dull nonsense?
Three reasons your jazz solo are boring. 재즈에 대해서 마치 오즈의 마법사 오즈와 도로시를 예를 들면서 어디로 향해야 되는지 모르는 게 분명히 여러 가지 주어진 조건들이 있음에도 불구하고 많은 시행착오를 거쳐야 되는 게 우리의 재즈라고. 어떻게 해야 재즈를 좀 더 탄탄하게 연주할 수 있는지 그 세 가지 어떤 화성 코드들을 알려주는 시간입니다.
Pillars of our foundation give each moment of our solo purpose and direction. Think about the Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy lands in Munchkinland, she's told to head to the city of Oz to meet the wizard.
분명히
As he
오즈란 나라는
resolved the
있어요.
tension that he
다만
was
우리가
creating in his solo
어떻게
lines.
가는지
And I
모르겠어요.
noticed this was kind of a cycle, right? There would be moments of tension followed by releasing that tension. And then that would build up again into
긴장감이 있고 이렇게 릴렉스 되는 순간이 있죠.
more tension, and then that would be released. And this would continue all the way through the end of the solo. So if we think about these two things individually, the moments of tension are actually not too difficult to play. The whole point of tension is to create dissonance, and well, it's not that hard to play dissonance. But when it comes to resolving that tension, we need to be very precise and very confident so that we get that sense of satisfaction. So open up a standard that you've been playing. I've got Satin Doll here in front of me, and I want to look for the dominant seventh chords that are resolving. The dominant chord is the point when our solo is going to transition from tension into releasing that tension. So if we look at the end of this first phrase, this D flat 7 that resolves down to C is where we want to release the tension in our line. Everything that leads up to that point is creating more and more tension, but once we get here to this dominant chord, it's our signal that we need to start heading back to safety. I like to practice this by thinking backwards. When it comes to our resolution here on C, we could pick a chord tone and aim for it. And there are lots of options for us to choose from, but let's just use E, the third, and let's aim for it right here on the downbeat. Now, just like in The Wizard of Oz, we need to kind of announce to our audience that we planned to end our line here on E. We need to call our shot, and then we need to hit it. So let's use a scale to create some gravity that pulls us down to that E. On our D flat 7 chord, we're going to use a D flat dominant scale, and we're going to come right down the scale to land here on E. Do you see how satisfying that is? This D7 line is literally pointing us at the E. We can do something similar ascending too. You might need to get a little creative to have it land in the right rhythm. You might have to add an additional chromatic note or an enclosure or something like that. But that's the general gist of the idea. So take a look over the rest of Satin Doll, and we want to look anywhere that we see a dominant chord that resolves and practice different ways to arrive with confidence. So this could be a 5-1 cadence. It could be a secondary dominant, or like our D flat 7 to C, this could be a tritone substitution. It could be a backdoor too, I guess, but I don't think Satin Doll has any of those. We're going to practice going through the tune, and every time we encounter one of these circles, we're going to pick the target note we want to aim for, and we're going to use scales to create gravity to land there. This exercise actually gives you confidence to be more free throughout your solo because you will know when and how to bring those freeform ideas back down to resolution.
한국전쟁 당시 1만 킬로미터를 날아와 우리를 도와주었던 고마운 나라 에티오피아. 6천여 명의 군인들은 자신들의 월급을
know when and how to bring those freeform ideas back down to resolution. Now imagine if the tornado had picked up Dorothy's house and it skipped right over Munchkinland and it just dropped the house right there at the gates of Oz. Sure, we got to the destination, but without any adventure to get there, the story is pretty short and pretty boring. And that's why our second pillar is so important. It gives us adventure along the way. Otherwise, our solos would be just 8 bars long without any interesting moments. And by learning how to add a sense of adventure like this, we can solo over the changes several times and we can keep our audience captivated. And I see improvisers fall into the same traps and patterns. Here's an example of the kind of solo I hear beginners play all the time. So very often these students come to me frustrated with how they sound because they think they're using boring notes. If only they knew all the fancy altered scales and stuff, right? But more often than not, the problem is not really in their note selection. It's that their rhythm is boring. And it's not really even that the rhythm of this phrase itself is boring. It's actually got some kind of cool swing to it. But when we repeat the same rhythm for every phrase, it becomes monotonous and stale. See, check out what happens if I take the same notes, but if I vary the rhythm each time that comes around. This is what I mean by creating adventure. When the rhythms are monotonous, they are predictable and safe. But if we want to create a sense of adventure, we need to keep the audience on their toes. So to practice this, let's take this simple phrase and explore it a few different ways. Try playing it on each beat of the measure. Here on beat 1, on beat 2, on beat 3, or on beat 4. Try shifting around the syncopation. But we can also expand our rhythmic vocabulary by stealing rhythms from our favorite solos and then writing our own melodies over top of those rhythms. Another good thing to try is to practice matching the patterns of our own speech. Maybe I could say something like, hit that subscribe button, and then I could use that rhythm to make a solo. Now seriously, if you've made it this far into the video and you're not subscribed, why not? Alright, now we've got 2 of the 3 pillars solved. There's just one more that we need to make sure that our solo doesn't crash into the ground. Before we get into that, let me tell you about my 7-day soloing challenge. This isn't a sales pitch. It's just something I'm doing for fun and completely for free. There's a link down in the description, and after you sign up, I'm going to send you the first video in the challenge and a workbook. Each day for the next week, I'm going to send you another video that builds on top of the last one. And as we go, you'll be improvising your own solo over the tune after you've gone. We've got a little community of musicians going through this challenge, and it's been really fun, and I've loved to see how people encourage and help each other out. I'm also doing Zoom calls live with this group so you can get feedback from me on your own solos, and you can pick up some new tips along the way. I would love to have you join us. Just click that link down in the description and sign up. As Dorothy travels to Oz, we, the audience, need to keep track of her progress, and the movie helps us do that by introducing the yellow brick road. Literally, it's a path for us to follow to the destination, and that road keeps Dorothy from getting lost, but just as importantly, it helps us as the audience understand and walk that path with her. Think about the importance of the yellow brick road as a storytelling device. It would be really hard for us as the audience to follow the story if Dorothy decided to, leave the yellow brick road and take a shortcut. We would all lose a sense for where we were on her journey, and we wouldn't know if we were still making progress or not. It's kind of fun to have some obstacles and forks in the road, but if we get too far off the road, we end up just confused and meandering aimlessly. And that's our third pillar, making sure that the audience knows what the path is that we're on so that they can follow along with us as we take our solo. Now, when we're taking a solo, we have to also follow the yellow brick road. In our case, that would be the changes. For example, if we're soloing over the blues, we're going to be following the 12-bar blues form. The notes that we pick for our solo lines have to pair up nicely with the chords. I mean, you already know this. It's not that rocket science. But yet, I often hear solos that sound like this anyway. When I ask my students what they were thinking when they played this solo, they tell me that they looked at each of the chords. They picked the scale that fits that chord, and then they use the notes of that scale kind of as a pool of available notes that they could pick from when they play. This is all well and good. The chord and scale relationships are things that we should definitely learn and pay attention to, but we need to be conscious of which notes we pick and when. A good rule of thumb is to put your chord tones on the beat, and then put our non-chord tones off the beat. Our ears kind of give a little bit more weight and importance to the notes that are on the beat, and by doing this, we outline the chord changes. And as these changes go by, our line will follow chord by chord, creating an outline of the overall harmony. Our audience is going to be able to see us walk the yellow brick road that way. Now, of course, this is just a guideline, not a hard and fast rule, and you will break this rule all the time when you're soloing, but it's a great thing for us to practice as an exercise so that we train our intuition. Listen to this solo by Chet Baker. It's over the tune Tangerine. Now, I have to play it because if I play the original, YouTube takes the video down. Sorry about that. But you can download the transcription in the description for you totally for free so you can play it yourself. And I want to see if you can hear all three pillars of this foundation we talked about. You're going to hear him set up confident chord resolutions, create rhythmic.
이렇게 챗 베이커를 예로 들으셨는데 저는 방금 손가락 선진곡과 그리고 몇 페이지에 있냐? 해보시죠.